What is the Vienna Circle? The paradoxical nature of verificationism. One of my recent articles was followed up with a question about the Vienna Circle. Why the inquisitor did not turn to a search engine or even to Google for answers is curious, but led me to also reminisce about the paradoxical nature of verificationism and its seeming return in the modern age, which is exactly why a return to critical rationalism remains so pertinent today. The Vienna Circle was a group of intellectuals and scholars that emerged in the early 20th century in Vienna, Austria. It was founded by Moritz Schlick, who became its central figure after taking the chair of philosophy of the inductive sciences at the University of Vienna in 1922. The circle brought together philosophers, scientists, and mathematicians who shared a common interest in developing a scientific worldview and in the pursuit of clarity, logic, and rigor in philosophical thought. Their work laid the foundation for logical positivism, also known as logical empiricism, a philosophical movement that profoundly influenced 20th century philosophy and science. This logical empiricism is either ironic or paradoxical depending on the point of view of the observer, as it relies merely on verificationism and not on any empirical approach or proof. The intellectual roots of the Vienna Circle can be traced to the late 19th century and the works of thinkers such as Ernst Mach, Ludwig Boltzmann, and the developments in logic and mathematics pioneered by Gottlob Frege and Bertrand Russell. The philosophical ideas of Ludwig Wittgenstein, particularly his Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, were also significant in shaping the group and its forward-thinking outlook. These antecedents emphasized the role of empiricism, logic, and the scientific method in understanding the world, which became central themes of the purported philosophy of the Vienna Circle. The Vienna Circle officially began to coalesce in the early 1920s, with regular meetings held under Schlick's leadership. Prominent members included Rudolf Carnap, Otto Neurath, Hans Hahn, Herbert Fiegel, Philipp Frank, and Kurt Gödel, among others. The group also maintained connections with intellectuals from other countries, such as Alfred Tarski and A. J. Ayer. Their discussions revolved around the philosophy of science, the foundations of mathematics, and the role of language in philosophical inquiry. They were particularly concerned with eliminating metaphysical and speculative elements from philosophy, advocating instead for an approach grounded in verifiability, empirical evidence, and logical analysis. The purpose of the Vienna Circle was to establish a unified scientific worldview by applying the methods of empirical science and formal logic to philosophical questions. They sought to delineate meaningful statements from meaningless ones by employing the principle of verification, which posits that a statement is meaningful only if it can be empirically verified or is analytically true. Particular attention should be given to analytically true and its resurgence in the modern age. This principle was a cornerstone of logical positivism and aimed to clarify the boundaries between science, philosophy, and metaphysics. The group was committed to advancing knowledge by fostering interdisciplinary collaboration among the sciences and philosophy, ultimately seeking to improve society through the application of rational and scientific principles. The Vienna Circle also engaged in public outreach to promote its ideas. This effort included the publication of the Schriften zur wissenschaftlichen Weltauffassung, Writings in the Scientific Worldview series, and the organization of conferences and lectures. Despite their ambition, the Circle faced challenges, including internal disagreements on specific philosophical issues and external political pressures as Austria moved toward authoritarianism in the 1930s. The rise of National Socialism and the assassination of Moritz Schlick in 1936 marked the end of the Vienna Circle as an active group. Many members fled to other countries, particularly the United States and the United Kingdom, where they continued to develop and disseminate their ideas. The legacy of the Vienna Circle lies in its profound influence on the philosophy of science, analytic philosophy, and related fields. Logical positivism, while later criticized and revised, significantly shaped discussions about the nature of scientific theories, the demarcation problem, and the role of language in philosophy. The Vienna Circle and their commitment to rigor, clarity, and empirical inquiry remains a cornerstone of contemporary philosophical and scientific thought but bears close scrutiny given the increasingly popular focus on subjective truths of the individual human experience in the modern age and how the individual has a right to demand society conform to their individual lived experience rather than themselves adapting to the societal nature of humanity. Verificationism, which emerged as a central tenet of logical positivism and was developed in part by members of the Vienna Circle, posits that a statement is meaningful only if it can be empirically verified or is analytically true. This principle sought to establish a clear demarcation between meaningful and meaningless statements, aiming to eliminate metaphysical or speculative elements from philosophical discourse. However, the verificationist approach is fundamentally flawed as a guiding principle in the pursuit of scientific or philosophical truths due to its subjective approach and inherent susceptibility to fostering dogmatic ideologies. One primary critique of verificationism lies in its self-refuting nature. The verification principle itself cannot be empirically verified nor is it analytically true, but rather merely a normative claim about meaning. Consequently, the principle of verificationism undermines its own legitimacy when applied to itself. This inherent paradox highlights the limitations of verificationism as a universal criterion for establishing empirical scientific or even philosophical truths. Moreover, the approach disregards the provisional and tentative nature of scientific inquiry, which often relies on theories and hypotheses that may not yet be empirically verified but nonetheless provide significant explanatory or predictive power, and whose theories are often seen as fanciful or even heretical if they do not conform to the status quo at the time of their formulation. Verificationism also promotes a static and inflexible understanding of knowledge by requiring empirical verification for meaning. This requirement ignores the evolutionary process of science, where theories are often refined or replaced over time as new evidence becomes available. Many scientific theories begin as unverified conjectures or involve elements that are difficult or impossible to empirically verify directly, such as theoretical physics, exploration of black holes or quantum mechanics or even the theory of heliocentrism. Under verificationist criteria, such theories could easily be proven to be true and to be false at the same time, be prematurely dismissed, stifling intellectual progress and exploration, while at the same time, under the same principles proposed by the Vienna Circle, using the empirical verification, also being proven true based solely on subjective standards. Consider for a moment Galileo Galilei, who became one of the most prominent supporters of the Copernican heliocentric model during the early 17th century but was charged with and convicted of vehement suspicion of heresy for advocating the Copernican system, which was deemed to contradict scripture as interpreted by the Church. According to the scientific consensus of the times, the Earth was by all accounts the central component of the known universe, and that was held to be analytically true at the time, thus, scientifically proving the statement to be true. Under the principles of empirical verificationism, Galileo Galilei used his recently invented telescope to view and record evidence verifying the efficacy and validity of his claims regarding the heliocentric universe. Thus, the paradoxical nature of the highly limited nature of verificationism becomes evident as, despite the lessons learned from the infamous feline of Schrödinger, a fact cannot be both true and false at the same time, or at least not outside the quantum world. In contrast, falsifiability, as introduced by Karl Popper, offers a more realistic approach for distinguishing scientific claims from non-scientific ones. Falsifiability requires that a statement or theory be testable and capable of being proven false through empirical evidence. This approach aligns more closely with the iterative and dynamic nature of science, where hypotheses must be subjected to rigorous testing and remain open to revision or rejection based on new data. By emphasizing testability rather than verification, falsifiability fosters a critical and self-correcting process that is essential for the advancement of practical knowledge and the capacity to gain wisdom. The absence of falsifiability in a verificationist framework can also lead to the promotion of dogmatic adherence to subjective tenets. Without the requirement for testability and the possibility of refutation, ideologies or theories can persist unchallenged, even when they lack empirical support or contradict existing evidence. This susceptibility creates a fertile ground for the proliferation of pseudoscientific or ideologically driven claims that present themselves as the real science. Such claims are often immune to criticism due to their lack of falsifiable predictions, allowing them to gain widespread acceptance despite their lack of objective validity. Verificationism, with reliance on empirical verification as the sole criterion for meaning, also enables the dismissal of objective truths in cases where such truths may be complex, inaccessible, or difficult to observe directly. In these instances, verificationism risks marginalizing or excluding legitimate avenues of inquiry that may uncover deeper truths over time. Simultaneously, by equating empirical verification with meaning, verificationism can legitimize ideologies that appear to satisfy its criteria but fail to uphold rigorous scientific standards. This legitimization fosters an environment where popular opinion or institutional authority can override critical inquiry, leading to the entrenchment of dangerous dogmatic ideologies. Falsifiability addresses these issues by requiring theories to withstand scrutiny and remain open to revision. This openness to refutation preserves the integrity of scientific and philosophical inquiry, ensuring that claims are continually evaluated and refined in light of new evidence. Furthermore, falsifiability mitigates the risk of dogmatism by promoting a culture of skepticism and accountability, which are essential for maintaining objectivity and intellectual freedom. Through its emphasis on testing and critical evaluation, falsifiability upholds the pursuit of objective truths while guarding against the uncritical acceptance of subjective or ideologically driven claims. Verificationism, with its flawed rationale, lies in its self-refuting nature, restrictive criteria for meaningfulness, and vulnerability to dogmatic adherence. These limitations underscore the necessity of falsifiability as a foundational principle in scientific and philosophical inquiry. By fostering a critical and self-correcting process, falsifiability ensures that theories remain testable, revisable, and aligned with the pursuit of objective truths, safeguarding against the dangers of dogmatism and the dismissal of legitimate knowledge. Falsifiability and its adaptive nature safeguards against dogmatism by promoting an intellectual culture that values critical scrutiny over unquestioning acceptance. This dynamic process not only advances scientific knowledge but also prevents the dismissal of legitimate theories that may lack empirical verification at a given time but hold potential for future testing and validation. By embracing falsifiability, scientific and philosophical inquiry can navigate the complexities of knowledge acquisition without succumbing to the pitfalls of rigid orthodoxy. The shortcomings of verificationism and the strengths of falsifiability underscore the necessity of a modern resurgence of critical rationalism. Critical rationalism, with its emphasis on the fallibility of knowledge and the importance of critical scrutiny, offers a more complete and comprehensive framework for addressing the challenges posed by verificationism. By advocating for the critical evaluation of all claims, regardless of their adherence to specific verification criteria, critical rationalism ensures that inquiry remains inclusive, dynamic, and oriented toward the discovery of objective truths. This approach not only counters the dangers of dogmatism but also fosters an intellectual environment conducive to innovation and progress. By embracing an approach at least partially based on critical rationalism, humanity is better equipped to chart a path forward that reconciles the pursuit of knowledge with the recognition of its inherent limitations. By rejecting the restrictive and self-refuting principles of verificationism and embracing the critical, self-correcting process of falsifiability, this approach ensures that scientific and philosophical endeavors remain aligned with the quest for objective truths. Such an approach is indispensable for addressing the complexities of contemporary challenges and advancing humanity and the collective understanding of truth.